What is up, everybody? It's Jiah here, and welcome back to another rant here today. Before I even begin, I want to say thank you to all of you for getting the previous rant to above 30 likes. Really appreciated. The same will apply for this video. If this video gets to 30 likes, I'll do another rant. And you guys, of course, again, let me know in the comment section below what topic or character would you like me to rant on next. So clearly by the title, before your very eyes, today I will be doing a Jiraiya rant video here today. And there are certainly some things to discuss, meaning I have a couple of aspects concerning Jiraiya's scaling listed, which will be discussed here today. So to get things started off, the first aspect I will be discussing is Jiraiya versus Itachi, right? Which is a relatively common debate in the Naruto community or fandom due to the statements that Itachi made early on in the narrative when conversing with Kisame when they happened to come near Jiraiya and see him with Naruto, right? Itachi tells Kisame that if they were to fight, both would die, and Kisame goes on to reinforce that premise by saying that the Uchiha name and the legacy of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist would be drug through the mud, right, if these two were to combat Jiraiya. Hence, with those statements in that conversation, some individuals will come to the conclusion that Jiraiya is above Itachi safely and nearly absolutely, as Kisame and Itachi both expressed their concerns, right? However, that is certainly most likely not the case, and the reason that that conclusion is constructed and finalized is either due to blatant intuitive dishonesty or incorrect contextualization of the actual situation taking place, right? So let's actually look at the situation and the contextual parameters of the conversation, right? Kisame has no reason to lie, right? He is an individual that is blatantly in the Akatsuki to try and achieve their goals, and is certainly loyal to the Akatsuki as evident by his own death, where he was willing to rather die and kill himself as opposed to ratting out Itachi and Akatsuki secrets. Right, so he has no reason to lie, and that's fine. However, Itachi does not fall within that same classification, right? Because Itachi, for one, as we know, or we come to know later on in the narrative, is undercover the entire time and is actually an undercover agent for the Leaf, and is doing so to protect Sasuke while also keeping tabs on the Akatsuki to make sure they don't pose a risk to Konoha and, or more specifically, Sasuke Uchiha, his little brother, right? So there's that. Hence, because of that, he certainly has reasons to lie when coming into contact with Konoha shinobi. Jiraiya is a fellow Konoha shinobi who Itachi is certainly aware of. Many in the shinobi world are aware of the three legendary Sannin, so it's very clear that Itachi is aware that Jiraiya is a Leaf shinobi as well. Hence, when conversing with Kisame, he's obviously going to try and reinforce his concerns to avoid a possible confrontation with Jiraiya, right? He does not want to have to engage in battle if he does not have to. Even in the altercation with Kakashi, Asuma, Kurenai, and Guy, he made sure to defuse the situation as best as possible. But the only difference is there was no excuse to avoid conflict altogether, right? Itachi is seen as this very high caliber shinobi, and none of these other shinobi, which include Kakashi and company, could stack up to him in terms of legacy and hearsay acknowledgement, right? Because Itachi is a legendary Uchiha, and the Uchiha clan itself is a legendary clan, right? Which puts them in this rare air. But however, Kakashi and company don't have any shinobi included in that group that are spoken highly enough for Kisame to come to the conclusion maybe we shouldn't engage in this conflict. Hence is the reason why Itachi had to engage in actual physical combat. However, again, like I said, he was clever enough to defuse the situation to avoid actually killing somebody. So he put Kurenai in her place with the Genjutsu battle they had, and then with Kakashi, he put just enough hurt on him to make it seem realistic to Kisame. He actually had to utilize his MS to make it seem convincing to Kisame that he's not undercover, and actually put Kakashi in the Tsukuyomi. The only difference is he made sure, to the best of his ability, only damage Kakashi enough as not to actually kill him, right? And then with Guy coming in, there was enough tension and prerequisites met for Itachi to say, hey, let's get out of here, right? One, Guy has the gates, right, which is very dangerous and has a lot of lore in the shinobi world. And two, Itachi happened to already utilize his MS, so he could use his stamina issues as a failsafe method to convince Kisame to leave the situation. So they exited, and Itachi didn't have to actually see Kisame engage in conflict with his actual shinobi allies, right, in Konoha. However, conversely, with the Jiraiya situation, Jiraiya is already a very legendary shinobi. He is one of the 3 legendary Sannin. So Itachi had a convincing enough ally in this situation to convince Kisame not to even engage in battle in the first place. And on top of that, Kisame already concluded that he himself was not nearly enough to engage in battle with this individual, right? So all these empirical pieces of evidence and rationalizations I just constructed are to point to the fact that Jiraiya is not above Itachi. And to further prove that, I always say, feats override statements, right? So later on in the narrative, we see the individuals that these two struggle with or have success with, right? Jiraiya, in Sage Mode, loses to Pain relatively easily, which I'll get into later when discussing that. And Itachi really doesn't have any real trouble with anybody his entire career, including when he was only around 13 or 14 and happened to foderize another fellow legendary Sannin in Orochimaru, right? He fodderized him without actually even engaging in battle with him physically. All he did was have to give him a quick glance, and he actually scared Orochimaru enough to never engage in battle with him again, right? So like I said, feats override statements, hence Itachi is safely above Jiraiya, right? Safely above Jiraiya. Safely. So the argument that just because Itachi said that he would die fighting Jiraiya is certainly not the strongest premise, nor the most possibly correct premise either, not even remotely close. When you actually look, again, at the contextual parameters of the situation and the conversation being had about Jiraiya at that point in time, right? To properly analyze contextual parameters of any said such situation, you must look at every relevant detail that you can. The motives of the characters, the moment that's taking place, the etc. There has to be a very thorough analytical process before you come to a conclusion on, oh, this is what this character means by saying X or Y, right? So, like I said, all that leads to the conclusion that by far the most likely truth is that Itachi would easily dispose of Jiraiya. Quite easily, to be quite honest. So that's the first aspect that I wanted to discuss. The next one is, where does Jiraiya scale within the Sannin, right? So this one is certainly more ambiguous, I must admit. But the argument I'm going to try and construct is that Orochimaru is probably the most capable out of the 3 Sannin, right? This one is certainly more ambiguous, but I did want to discuss it because I do think it's relevant enough when it comes to Jiraiya scaling, as the Sannin's ranking are always a very contentious topic in the community, right? So the best way to scale Orochimaru and Jiraiya is to look for mutual opponents, right? And what's a mutual opponent that both had? Four Tails Naruto, right? The Four Tails Naruto incident that Jiraiya had early on in Naruto Part 1, and the incident Orochimaru had in Shippuden with an older Naruto when he went Four Tails, right? So let's look at the contextual parameters of that, right, shall we? Jiraiya states himself that he only happened to meddle around with death twice, right? The first time is when Tsunade beat him for being a pervert, okay, fair enough. The second time was with Four Tails Naruto, right? He got so close to death that he was mortally wounded by Naruto, right? He has a very, very deep contusion in his chest from the damage he sustained from that battle, or that altercation, if you will, with Four Tails Naruto. Now, to be fair, we could assume that that situation probably wasn't as long-lasting as opposed to Orochimaru's altercation, which I'll get to after this. But nonetheless, he was close to death in that situation. What does that imply? That if Naruto were not to be handled, right, and Jiraiya were not able to seal or strengthen the seal of the Nine Tails inhibition in time, he would have died to Four Tails Naruto, right? That's what that indicates, right? So clearly Jiraiya is inferior to Four Tails Naruto, and the only reason he survived is because he was quick enough, more than likely. The only reason he survived is more than likely because he was quick enough to strengthen the seal and inhibit the Nine-Tails Chakra back into Naruto's body, if you will, right? So there's that. Now, another premise I want to attack is the premise that, oh, Jiraiya was caught off guard. Not necessarily. He says that he was training with Naruto prior to the Four Tails emerging. Not only that, but the Four Tails doesn't come out instantaneously in most situations. In fact, observably, we never really see Naruto achieve Four Tails instantaneously. We usually see Tails 1 through 3 sprout out first, even if it's in a very quick fashion. They sprout out first, right? So it's not like an instantaneous shift from base to Four Tails, at least observably, right? So essentially, it is more than unlikely that Jiraiya was caught off guard. He was already in a training mode with Naruto. He's certainly not just nonchalantly walking down some meadow somewhere and having the time of his life, right? He's certainly not in that situation, as evident by him saying, I was training Naruto when this happened, right? Essentially meaning that more than likely he was trying to calm Naruto down, right? Trying to calm Naruto down, and he didn't try to strengthen the seal in time. And what happened is he underestimated the power that the Nine Tails possesses, and once he got to Four Tails, that's when the threat became imminent, more than likely, right? And then Jiraiya had to act swiftly because he was already mortally wounded. He had to use more effort than he thought would be necessary to strengthen the seal and inhibit the Nine Tails Chakra again, right? So I wanted to attack that premise because a lot of people automatically conclude, oh, he's caught off guard, so it doesn't mean he's inferior to Four Tail Naruto. Not necessarily. That's not necessarily what is indicated, and I disproved that via contradiction. Now, let's go to Orochimaru's incident and altercation with Four Tail Naruto. He, first of all, dealt with a stronger iteration of the Four Tails, and here's why. Jiraiya states that there is evidence that the seal is weakening over time, right? And clearly, there's a discrepancy in time from Jiraiya's altercation with Four Tail Naruto and Orochimaru's altercation with Four Tail Naruto, right? Clearly, Naruto is older by some arbitrary degree, possibly even a couple years, implying, if given the benefit of the doubt, a substantially stronger Naruto. Obviously, there's no way to quantify the rate of weakening nor the increase in power of the Nine Tails as the steel begins to weaken, but clearly we can conclude that there is a substantial increase in power from, Jiraiya incident Four Tail Naruto and to Orochimaru incident Four Tail Naruto, right? So keep that in mind as well. Now with this altercation, Orochimaru clearly underestimated Naruto as well, right? Even saying that Three Tail Naruto was out of the league of Sasuke, etc., and allowed Naruto essentially to continue to increase in power due to his rage, right? Which is the feeding fuel to the Nine Tails, right? As pointed out by Jiraiya as well when talking to Kakashi and company in the hospital. Rage fuels the Nine Tails Chakra, right? So when push came to shove, Naruto entered Four Tails mode. And at this point, keep in mind this is Orochimaru, Orochimaru realized he severely underestimated what the Nine Tails can do, right? That altercation didn't last too long. He was able to punch Four Tails Naruto. He was able to react arbitrarily to Four Tails Naruto. But when Naruto, in the Four Tails mode, began to use Biju bombs, Orochimaru stated, if I don't get out of here, I will die. On top of that, his Kusanagi sword, which seems to have mystical properties, couldn't even pierce Four Tails Naruto because at this point in time, the chakra was so dense that it was acting as some sort of armor upon Naruto's body, right? So essentially, Orochimaru was clearly inferior to Four Tails Naruto, right? So the reason I point these incidents out and really analyze the contextual parameters of each is to make the argument that Orochimaru at his best is most likely stronger than Jiraiya, right? Not only did Orochimaru, like Jiraiya, survive an altercation with Four Tail Naruto, he survived an altercation with a stronger iteration of Four Tails Naruto as opposed to Jiraiya, right? So there's that aspect that must be kept into account. The second aspect is that, again, Orochimaru was ill. He was certainly not near the peak of his powers. He was increasingly deteriorating in health, right? So the argument is that Orochimaru is more than likely above Jiraiya due to the, again, mutual opponents both had and due to the success each of these individuals had with that mutual opponent. And finally, due to the contextual parameters behind their altercation with this mutual opponent, right? So more than likely, Orochimaru is above Jiraiya. Now, another rationalization I want to add before we move on to the next aspect of the rant is that Orochimaru is more ambitious than the other two Sani, right? Think about it rationally. Tsunade was a gambler prior to Jiraiya and Naruto finding her in some random area in the Shinobi world. Jiraiya is a pervert that goes around doing research, trying to research women, right, for his book, right? So these two are less ambitious than Orochimaru. Orochimaru is an ambitious, narcissistic sociopath that is trying at all costs to achieve true power, right? As summarized by himself when fighting Hiruzen in the Konoha Crush arc. I want to defy aging. I want to become immortal. I want to achieve all knowledge and all power possible, right? So clearly he's more ambitious. So the argument that Orochimaru is above Jiraiya makes sense even more when taking that into account, right? When taking into account their personalities, right? Now am I making the case that Orochimaru would slam Jiraiya? No, I'm not making that case. I'm just pointing out the empirical pieces of evidence to indicate that Orochimaru is above Jiraiya. I'm not so worried about the discrepancy between the two. I'm more so worried with the conclusion itself that Jiraiya is inferior to Orochimaru. Again, they're most likely relative at their best. Orochimaru never became a perfect sage, right? The sages prohibited it due to his sadistic nature. Fair. I'm just saying there's a better argument for Orochimaru being above Jiraiya as opposed to the antithesis of that, which is Jiraiya above Orochimaru, right? So I really wanted to point that out, and I hope I brought some clarity to some on that as well. Again, that one's probably the most ambiguous aspect of this video. And I don't think you're crazy to say Orochimaru is above, that Jiraiya is above Orochimaru. However, I think the empirical evidence is against you, and so is the narrative. But that's that aspect. The next one I wanted to discuss was Jiraiya with Sage Mode versus Pain, and the comparisons he has with Sage Mode Naruto and etc. Because I've seen some people go as far as to say that Jiraiya with Sage Mode is relative to Naruto based on their performances respectively against Pain. Right? Now, the first thing I want to discuss, to get this out of the way quickly, is Pain's statement, right? When he says, oh, if it weren't for our secret, we couldn't have won, right? Implying that he would have lost to Jiraiya. Firstly, again, the contextual parameters matter. Pain looks up to Jiraiya as a sensei, right? Nagato was, for some part of his childhood, raised by Jiraiya to become a better shinobi, right? He sees him in this rare air as far as a mentor, and sees him as, oh wow, he's one of the three legendary Sani, and he saved me from the hell of the Rain Village, right? So there's that sort of emotional bias going into his conclusion. Secondly, if you just interpret that statement in a different manner, you don't have to automatically assume due to that statement Jiraiya individually would beat Pain. That could simply mean that if his secret was known by Jiraiya, he would have brought more reinforcements that could have been problematic to Pain in the Rain Village. Right? So you also got to take that interpretation as a possibility as well. Now, regardless, like I said previous, feats override statements, right? Feats override statements. Pain defeated Jiraiya with relative ease. Jiraiya was running away, even in Sage Mode, from 3 of the weaker paths of Pain. And for you guys that don't know this, there's a discrepancy in power between each of the paths of Pain, as evidenced by their performance against Jiraiya, and as evident in their performance against Konoha and Naruto, right? We see one of the weaker paths of Pain get blitzed by Konohamaru, and then we see the strongest, i.e. Tendo Pain, going toe-to-toe with Sage Mode Naruto. So there's clearly a discrepancy in power and ability between each of the paths of Pain respectively, right? Nagato uses these paths of Pain collectively to achieve his goals, right? And he gives most of the physical power to the Tendo path and a lot of the AP abilities to the Asura path. The rest are more support, right? The summoning one, the sole purpose of that one is to summon animals. The absorption path, its role is to absorb chakra to negate the possibility of damage being sustained. Then you have the sort of reconstructor path that was able to reconstruct paths and bring them back to functionality, etc., right? Right. So it makes sense logically, and it is evident empirically that the paths of Pain vary in power. Jiraiya in his altercation with Pain, fought 3 of their weaker paths, right? The summoning, the absorption, and one other one, certainly not the Tendo path of Pain. Even against the weaker paths of Pain, his fastest attack in Sage mode was countered, right? He said it himself. My fastest attack was countered, right? Along those lines, implying that even a weaker path of Pain with lower physical capabilities was able to react to him, while conversely, all the paths of Pain were essentially one-shotted by Naruto in Sage mode, right? That just shows a discrepancy between Jiraiya and Naruto. So the context behind the altercations these two had with Pain are certainly different, right? Now, when all 6 paths of Pain congregated, they disposed of Jiraiya like that. It was very quick, and it was very efficient. There was no contention in that altercation. They blitzed him, and that was the end of his life. With Naruto, Pain had to work around the time limitation Naruto had due to the dominance Naruto displayed in his Sage mode, right? Which was a perfect Sage mode, as opposed to Jiraiya's imperfect Sage mode. So Naruto is certainly more physically capable than Jiraiya, as I pointed out via empirical evidence and rationalizations around it. Jiraiya only had the success he had because of the hacks, right? I.e. the Frog Song Genjutsu, right? The auditory Genjutsu. That's the only reason he had the success he had. In a physical exchange, he was losing. He was falling. He was starting to lose. He even lost an arm to the Asura path. He was beginning to, his efforts and his abilities were beginning to dwindle, as opposed to Naruto, right? Naruto, in a physical altercation, was doing very, very well against Pain. Now, to add more icing on top of the cake, Jiraiya was running away from Pain. And on top of that, he caught the Pains off guard, arguably, with the Frog Song Genjutsu anyway. Right, so it's not like, oh, he has the activation time and the reactionary ability to catch passive Pain and Genjutsu. First of all, they're the weaker passive Pain. Secondly, he was running away. And thirdly, more than likely, the Pains were caught off guard anyway. Right, so when you analyze all the contextual parameters, when comparing Naruto's performance and Jiraiya's performance in their Sage modes, respectively, it's very clear that Naruto is the superior. On top of that, it's stated by the Toad himself that taught these two Sage mode that Naruto surpassed his predecessors, i.e. he has surpassed Jiraiya in Sage mode and more than likely in ability as well. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. It's not too hard to prove that Naruto is above Jiraiya. It's stated, and it's observably evident that he is vastly superior to his predecessor. It's vastly evident. So I wanted to point that out as well, because I've seen that contention thrown around the community at times as well. But again, empirically, just very obviously, rationally, logically, it's obvious that Naruto is above Jiraiya. It's very obvious Naruto's above Jiraiya. In terms of physical capability, he is a perfect Sage, Jiraiya is not. Naruto defeated arguably all the passive Pain. Jiraiya, via off-guard hacks, was able to dispose of 3. It's very obvious who had the more successful performance when putting their feats on this theoretical teeter-totter, right? One outweighs the other substantially. Right? So it's really that simple. Now, the final aspect I want to discuss is Jiraiya's comparisons to Tsunade. Now, this is the first aspect in which I'm going to defend Jiraiya, because a lot of people will revere Tsunade's performance in the war against Madara, right, when she's with the 5 Kage. Again, contextual parameters. I know I've said this 100 times in this video, but it matters. Madara Uchiha was toying with his food. He literally gave the 5 Kage an option on how they wanted to be disposed of, whether they wanted wood clones or 25 Susanos. That's how superior he was to these individuals. He had the ability to play around, skip around like he's at recess in the playground playing with first graders and he's a senior in high school or something like that. That's a perfect analogy to illuminate on the pure dominance Madara Uchiha had. Right, so there's that. Hence, Tsunade is not remotely comparable to Madara and is not magically way above Orochimaru and Jiraiya. That's not the case. On top of that, people revere the feats that she had. Oh, she cracked his Susanoo. First of all, he was allowing it. Second of all, she was being aided by the Raikage and Onuki, right? Onuki was amping the speed of the Raikage via gravity manipulation. They punched at the back of the Susanoo, which increased the impact of Tsunade's punch anyway. Now, she fought her? No. But to remotely imply that she's vastly superior and got, the most significant mental amp prior to the conclusion of the war arc is preposterous. That's not the case. That's not the case. Her durability is extremely impressive. It is, but she's killable. If she's decapitated, that's the end. She's done for. The only reason she got in the 100 healings mode is because Madara allowed it, first of all. He could have blitzed all of them and one-shotted them. Could have chopped them down. He could have done whatever he wanted to them. The reason she even had the success she had is because Madara allowed it. It's really that simple. And as soon as he was done toying with his food, guess what? He exterminated all of them, like lambs to the slaughter. Left Tsunade cut in half. The rest of the Kage beaten on the ground, near death. That's what happened when Madara decided to use some effort, by the way. So to try and use that event to substantiate Tsunade having this magical increase in power that is so substantial that she would like foderize Jiraiya and Orochimaru is preposterous. Again, a common theme in this video is either the voluntary ignorance or the inability to properly analyze contextual parameters of an event. You must properly analyze the context behind an event before utilizing it as an empirical piece of evidence. You can't simply look at the event and take it at surface value, right, and just stop there. There has to be an analytical process in your thinking to come to an accurate conclusion. And a lot of people don't do that, not only with this, but just in general. Whether that's willfully or due to inability or ignorance, it happens a lot. It happens a lot. So, Tsunade does not magically scale above Jiraiya and Orochimaru due to her cracking Madara's Susanoo because he allowed it. No. With help from the Raikage and Onoki, by the way. Jiraiya would most likely defeat Tsunade. Now, each of the Sannin have their Sannin plus abilities, respectively, right? Orochimaru has the Hydra Snakes, Jiraiya has Sage Mode, and Tsunade has the 100 Healings, right? The 100 Healings ability, where she has immensely impressive durability, right? She can even get cut and have entire limbs cut off and still survive. Now, that's her forte, right? Her durability is her forte. Clearly, Jiraiya would have to deal with that. However, the speed discrepancy would certainly be against Tsunade. If Jiraiya is able to get in Sage Mode, Tsunade will fall to him. The speed discrepancy would be too great. His hacks as well would be problematic for her. If she's caught in the Frog Song Genjutsu, she will be held against her will, and then he could decapitate her and throw her body somewhere else where it could never be attached again. More than likely, Jiraiya would come out on top. The margin for error for Tsunade is much smaller. She has much less versatility in her arsenal. All she has is high IP striking, medical ninjutsu, and her 100 healings. That's all she has. That's all she has. Jiraiya has long distance, medium distance, and short distance abilities. Sage Mode Taijutsu, Toad Combo Ninjutsu, Summonings, the Toad Stomach, all kinds of things that he has. He has hacks. There's so many things he could do to defeat Tsunade. So many things. Tsunade has the most bland arsenal among the three Sannin. By far, actually. It's not even close. She would most likely fall to Jiraiya. And no, her mental amp would not be enough. Now, is it impossible for her to win? No. Clearly, there's relativity amongst the Sannin. It's stated in data books multiple times. Clearly, there is situations and circumstances in which she'd win. However, what I'm specifically arguing is that the possibility of victory is in favor for Jiraiya. Again, due to the more versatile arsenal, due to the speed discrepancy there'd be, and due to the more numerous win conditions that are at Jiraiya's disposal as opposed to Tsunade's, which are more minimal in comparison. That's essentially why Jiraiya would most likely win. So that's essentially all the aspects I wanted to discuss. I know this one was a more lengthy rant. I hope you guys don't mind. Let me know, and any valid constructive criticism is greatly appreciated. If you want a shorter one, longer one, this is cool, let me know. Again, get this video to 30 plus likes and let me know the next topic. I want to stick to controversial topics. This one is fairly controversial, not as controversial as the previous two, but fairly controversial, and most of you guys wanted it, so I had to bring it to you guys. But either way, if enough of you guys want a topic, regardless of whether I determine it as controversial or not, I will bring it to you. But that's essentially all I have, folks. Let me know your thoughts on all these aspects that I discussed here today. And that's going to wrap it up for this one. This is Jiah the Great signing out. Peace.